Alright, nerds, we gotta talk about Mr. Popo, the racist caricature side character from the Dragon Ball series of anime and manga. Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, passed away on the 1st of March 2024, and I wanted to take some time before I did this in order to respect his passing. I did not know him as a person. I was a fan of his work. I didn't make this video to put Akira Toriyama on trial. It's more directed at his hardcore, cultish fans. We'll also be talking a little bit about Yasuke, the legendary black samurai who caused a ruckus online when he was announced as one of the leads in Assassin's Creed Shadows, because I think it'll help illustrate the rock and the hard place that a lot of black nerds find ourselves wedged between when it comes to white Japanophiles, aka weeaboos, aka weebs, and their possessiveness over a foreign culture they do not belong to. It's about a problem that goes well beyond the Dragon Ball fanbase.
What the is Mr. Popo?
Hi, my name is Nick. I have a degree from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I'm also an award-winning journalist. I'm black, and I enjoy Dragon Ball.
All I ever wanted to be in life was a Super Saiyan. You know, ever since I was a kid, I used to always look up to Goku and Vegeta.
Mr. Popo is the faithful servant of the Guardian of Earth. He is pitch black except for his palms. He is very rotund and round-shaped, and he doesn't have a nose. His face is just a set of big red lips and big white circles with black dots for eyes. And those features should be familiar to anyone at all who understands how black people were portrayed in American popular culture during the Jim Crow era. However, unlike those depictions, he wears a turban, he has pointy ears and earrings, he wears gold armbands, a vest, a red cummerbund sash, hammer pants. I don't know what else to call them. I consulted with my fashion expert, so let's go with that. He also has pointy slippers, and all that'll be important later. He's also strong enough to block hands from a baby Super Saiyan. That's not really important for later, but it is neat. Mr. Popo is what we call off-model in the world of character design, meaning he doesn't match Dragon Ball style at all. In the early Dragon Ball manga and anime, the line work is a lot more rounded and bubbly, so Popo fit a little bit more, but by the time you get into Dragon Ball Z, the designs become decidedly more sharp and angular. Dragon Ball editor Yu Kondo once said round lines don't convey speed or intensity, so Mr. Popo wound up looking even more out of place than he did originally, but either way, no other characters in the series have those eyes, and that should really be a dead giveaway to part of his visual inspiration, but
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
yes, ice skating uphill. Thank you, Blade. Toriyama got a lot of mileage out of Popo's outfit. He uses it for multiple Middle Eastern, Southeast Asian, and genie-coded characters, starting with the Teapot Genie from his first manga, Dr. Slump, but also Dragon Ball characters like Mr. Popo, Boo, Oob, and this random fighter guy, Pintar. He's a jabroni. However, the turban and the earrings are all Mr. Popo. Anyway, nobody really knows what the hell Mr. Popo is, not in the series or in real life, so I'm gonna put that art degree hat on and try to answer that second question. But first, I'm gonna tell you why this explanation is in order.
It isn't pleasant. Are you sure you want to?
Yes.
Fine, follow me.
Not long after Toriyama's death, I saw posts online attempting to erase Mr. Popo's racist connotations. A Twitter influencer who calls himself Buster Keaton made a rage bait post about Popo aimed at mourning Dragon Ball fans. I think that was in poor taste, but the reaction to it has led to increasing historical revisionism about the character. I would like to attempt to undo some of that. If you dig around on the internet, wikis, videos that describe the character, Reddit, anywhere a fan might go wanting to learn more about the character, you'll discover that many believe Mr. Popo is based on the Hindu Buddhist deity Mahakala. There's even a Twitter bot copy pasta meme explaining it. I used to think Mr. Popo was a slave or blackface character in the popular anime Dragon Ball Z. But after some digging, I realized Mr. Popo represented Mahakala, the god of time, Now it makes sense that Mr. Popo was also the guardian of the hyperbolic time chamber. This definitely has credence. Goku and the original story of Dragon Ball are based on Sun Wukong, the Monkey King from Journey to the West, and Sun Wukong was likely inspired by the Hindu deity Hanuman. So there is precedent in Dragon Ball for adapting characters from mythology. Mahakala has pitch black skin and a red mouth and earrings. His name means the Great Black One, and the Tibetan name is Nakpo Chenpo, so that's likely where the name Popo comes from. I've seen a few places here and there say Toriyama said the name Popo was comforting. I can't find a source for that. There's also Daikokuten, one of the Japanese luck gods. He's partly based on Mahakala, but he's more like Mr. Popo because he's jolly. His name means God of the Great Darkness. Early texts have described him as having black skin, and he's still sometimes depicted in that manner. I'm sure both of them inform the design of Mr. Popo. Toriyama never really talked about Mr. Popo as a matter of public record, but assuming all of that is true, there's still no way that those are the only inspirations for Mr. Popo, because this is not just a coincidence. The figures you're looking at now are commonly referred to as Blackamoors. These were statues, jewelry, trinkets, often carved from ebony, usually jet black, regardless of materials, depicting black people in servitude while wearing exotic, regal attire. In a previous video, I briefly touched on the ornate valet costumes worn by slaves in many paintings of the era. Moor is an old Italian word that meant black or Muslim person, with blackamoor referring explicitly to black people, though the word Moor eventually took on that same meaning anyway. These depictions became fashionable during the Rococo period of the mid-18th century, but were not limited to these objects or that time period. By now, you may have noticed that they all look like Mr. Popo. Turbans, hammer pants, pointed shoes, earrings, red lips. It's all there. The popular image of the Moor has its origins in the Moor's head, beginning with the Cross of Alcaraz, believed to be the first use of the Moor's head. For around 800 years, most of the Middle Ages, North African Muslims controlled the southern peninsula of Spain. Infighting and the Reconquista Crusades destabilized them out of the region, one such conflict being the Battle of Alcaraz in 1096. The legend says that the Force Ghost of St. George himself appeared towards the end of the battle to cheer on them white boys, and that Peter Aragorn I was then apparently presented with a St. George's cross and the heads of 4 Moorish rulers. These two components, the cross with the 4 Moor heads, would make up the Cross of Alcaraz, which has undergone many permutations over the years, but has always been St. George's cross with the head of a black man in each quadrant. There's a book from 1396 called the Hellray Armorial. It's a collection of the important noble houses of Europe at the time. Here, on the page for the Kingdom of Aragorn, we can see the cross. Just 4 heads, no other details to them. But also further down we have the flag of Corsica, a similar design, with 1 head and a white bandana. Here's a version from 1536 with crowns and bandanas and would look to be bloody stumps on the heads. These early versions fluctuate between black and brown skin tones, but keep in mind, many of the people making this art had never actually seen a black person before and were having the details described to them, often years after the fact, by sensationalists. And that could do a lot to explain why so many medieval depictions of us are so distorted. After all, most of these artists also had no idea what a crocodile, or a lion, or an elephant looked like either. You know what, forget about elephants and lions for a second. Some of these hacks couldn't even do a decent representation of a horse. I can't imagine they had never seen a horse. And just like those shitty looking lions, this horrific approximation of our appearance has proliferated for generations. This also begs the question, why is Leonardo da Vinci's drawing of an elephant so goddamn good? Was he just an incredibly inquisitive listener with an expressive mind's eye, or did that motherfucker actually see an elephant one time, IRL? The world will never know. What was once Aragorn is now Sardinia. This is the flag of Sardinia today. This is the flag of Corsica today. This is the flag of Linkebeek, Belgium. The Moor's head became part of numerous other coats of arms throughout Europe, too many to name here. The Moor became a decorative symbol, no different from the knight's helmet or the fleur-de-lis. In the Netherlands, people dress up like this guy for Christmas. His name is Black Peter. Just like Mr. Popo, he's a goofy servant, but for Santa Claus instead of an old green dude. My belief is that these images led to these images. These are darkies, the more modern, cartoonist, simplified version of the Blackamoor popularized by the American white Southerners of the Reconstruction era. Today you'd probably call this blackface, but that's because white academics and probably YouTube don't like using the word darky. Blackface is the makeup that you wear for a minstrel show, not this, but whatever, language mutates. I don't want a bunch of white intellectuals saying the word darky either, so we can call it blackface. Given the time and resources, I theorize we could draw a straight line from the Blackamoor iconography to the darky or blackface iconography, but the point is Mr. Popo is clearly a marriage of both things. He's a darky in the uniform of a Blackamoor, he's a Blackamoor, but make it kawaii. Kawaii is a Japanese term that essentially means cute, and in Japan, it's a big industry. Corporate mascots, government mascots, all with cute, blank expressions. Characters like Mr. Popo, Jinx from Pokemon, and this one that I'm about to talk about in a moment, they have a cute, simplified style, not unlike the popular tourism mascot Kumamon or even Keroppi the frog from Hello Kitty. I read a study that argues that these deformed black caricatures from a society with so few black people are a cross-section of the infantilization experienced by both black Americans and Japanese people assimilating to white European norms after the Civil War and World War II respectively. I'll link to the research paper in the description, it's a doozy. You might remember back in 2017 when Princess Michael of Kent wore a Blackamoor brooch to the Queen's Christmas lunch knowing good and well Meghan Markle would be there. Dolce & Gabbana also tried to bring back the Blackamoor look in 2013 on some straight bullshit, but I digress on purpose. This info dump isn't only to establish that there is an abundance of historical evidence that should make it clear to all of us what the fuck Mr. Popo is. It is also an attempt to wear out the weebs with short attention spans so that they'll run to the comments and explain to me that Dragon Ball somehow exists in total isolation from all Western imagery, and that all of its characters are East Asian references exclusively. It is at this point I would like to introduce you all to the Dragon Ball Z character, Killer! Presented without further commentary.
Man, I tell you that, man, I've been taught and work up like a jackhammer. Turn him out, flex out 14. Hit him on cinematic. Spopovich kid a fight like that. Get a nice bit of that truck. Huh? Ready? Come on. Man, you talking funny.
But seriously, folks, Akira Toriyama was born in 1955, which means that he was 5 years old when Dako-chan came out. An inflatable vinyl baby doll toy with holographic winking eyes, a grass skirt, stretched earlobes, and of course, jet black skin and red lips. Dako-chan became a nationwide craze in Japan because she was positioned so that you could attach her to things or wear her yourself as a fashion statement. Kind of like the suction cup Garfield craze of the 1980s, Dako roughly translates to hug, so it's like she's hugging everything. Not only was Dako-chan fully in line and clearly inspired by Western caricatures of black people, but Dako-chan was so popular herself that she became a worldwide craze outside of Japan. There is almost no way that Toriyama wasn't exposed to Dako-chan, and it's just as likely that he saw Blackamoor jewelry or sculpture at some point in his life as well. Children's books like Little Black Sambo that use this same iconography were printed in Japanese. Toriyama was inspired by Western animation, most notably Disney, since he has 3 characters named Bibbidi, Bobbidi, and Boo, but plenty of old cartoons used racist iconography, sometimes specifically of the Blackamoor variety, and that stuff was available in Japan. Like I mentioned before, Toriyama never actually talked about Popo as far as I can tell, so you just gotta trust your eyes. And I would hope that the descriptions I've given are good enough to make it clear to my visually impaired listeners as well. Unfortunately, many people in the Dragon Ball fandom are inhibited from making this very obvious connection because they have a problem that's pervasive throughout modern fandom. In my video about Tiny Toons, I briefly touched on the idea that under capitalism, we all have our IP gods. Like, for me, it's Marvel Comics or WWE. But it could be a designer logo for somebody else, or a sports team, or a gaming console, or a big ass cup. Remember those?
Check my big cup. Double up, heavyweight size. Fill them up and guzzle till you're satisfied. Big and wide, 10 feet high, 1.8, and I'm feeling right.
But a ton of the new gods are just repackaged old gods. The Flash is just capitalist Mercury. Wonder Woman is just a capitalist Amazon. Thor is capitalist Thor. And the previously mentioned Goku is capitalist Sun Wukong, who himself is a repackaged Hanuman. And if there's one thing religions aren't particularly fond of, it's blasphemy. In certain fandoms, if you criticize an aspect of something, you are no longer a real fan. Real fans dogmatically accept everything they're given as a gift from the creators. So Popo can't be bad because GT excluded, Dragon Ball is good. Which means everything about it is good. It's just that simple. What creepy Bulma stuff.
I don't want to hear about your perversions!
So instead of doing what I did, and following the trail of Mr. Popo's undeniable roots and racial caricature, motherfuckers are going out of their way to figure out how to deny it. Because they're so fragile, they can't even deal with something from a cartoon they like being very obviously racist.
We must learn to trust, rebuild.
The other side of the coin is the appearance of Yasuke, the only known black samurai who was the retainer to Nobunaga in 1581 as a playable character in Assassin's Creed Shadows. A vocal enclave of angry white gamers did everything in their power to make Yasuke anything other than what he was. The Assassin's Creed games draw from history. They tell fictional stories. You regularly play as characters exploring places that are foreign to them. A black samurai would seem to be a completely appropriate protagonist for the series, so they went with the narrative that Yasuke was never a samurai to begin with, and that the idea that he was came from Western DEI academics.
I mean all actual historical data, not data that you find on Reddit from some f***ing they-them with short multicolored hair and piercings everywhere saying, I'm non-binary, gender's not a thing, but samurais are black.
Covert racists are obsessed with plausible deniability. They want to say and do racist things without having to acknowledge them as such, so instead of just saying you don't want to play as a black samurai in a video game, you have to attempt to revise history. That way you can pretend to be mad about inaccuracy, even though this is the kind of game where you can shapeshift, or turn invisible, or blind your enemies with a magic sword. Leonardo da Vinci builds you a working hang glider with an assault cannon on it. But you're outraged about a black samurai because he's inaccurate. I'm sorry, but how does this thing reload? A lot of white obsessives of Japanese culture remind me of white liberals in this way. They don't know the difference in between trying to advocate for a group of people they aren't a part of and straight up trying to speak for that group of people.
Now this is obvious and blatant pandering to the black community, and it's quite offensive, not only to the black community, but to the Japanese community.
But they are worse than the white liberals when it comes to stuff like this, because it comes from their not so secret desire for a homogenized culture like the one they fantasize about in Japan. Like they just want to go somewhere they don't have to deal with us or think about us. And stuff like the Yasuke controversy or the lack of controversy surrounding Mr. Popo make that clear. Yasuke makes it clear how far they'll go out of their way to discredit and diminish us, and Mr. Popo makes it clear how far they'll go to not have to listen to us. They really tried to speak to the manager on this one too. They claimed that the game was an international incident for Japan, and that Yasuke was Nobunaga's pet. Assassin's Creed publisher Ubisoft certainly didn't help matters by releasing a statement that they said was aimed at concerned Japanese players, but to anyone born before yesterday, it's pretty clear they were bending a knee to the weebs. The game has a Japanese protagonist, but she's a woman, which these dorks also think is yucky, so throw the whole game away. They don't want to listen to multiple Japanese historians who say that Yasuke was a samurai. The Japanese Foreign Ministry has made it clear that they do not care about this video game, and it's bizarre that the story even got that far, but these white boys are really hurting right now, and I guess they need this. It's also worth noting the Souls-like game Neo, based on the English samurai William Adams. He's also the inspiration for the white guy on the show Shogun. You won't find a ton of complaints online about centering stories around this guy. I wonder why that is. If you've been following me for a minute now, it should be pretty clear that uncharted terrain is my terrain. I'm like that big purple cloud demon that lives at the ass end of the MCU, just floating around a wasteland, eating forgotten things. But it's still frustrating to come to the realization that I gotta be the one to put Mr. Popo's Blackamoor roots on the record. I mean, of all the know-it-alls in the nerd community, and this still isn't going to be explained unless I do it. And not a ton of people watch these. I'm a struggling channel. A lot of times I wish more people watch my shit just so I could hear some other creators' perspectives on this stuff. Seriously, every loser who met Yasuke's samurai status with a level of skepticism that no one seems to reserve for Mr. Popo, I need you to know that you are all deeply incurious people. From what I can gather, there isn't a ton of information about Yasuke. Much of it does point to samurai status. They wouldn't have let a slave hold Nobunaga's sword, only a samurai. And people pretending he wasn't a samurai are picking the worst of many possibilities because Yasuke being a slave or a pet doesn't challenge them in any way. It fits comfortably in line with the way they already view black people. Meanwhile, I dropped a whole montage of Mr. Popo variants, and I guarantee you someone will still have the nerve to tell me I have no idea what I'm talking about. This is why everyone calls you entitled. I know white nerds like the back of my hand. A lot of them can't stand me. Their understanding of blackness is so dangerously limited.
As for the hair, it's a little retro. A little black power, a little political in my opinion. I don't know if I would have injected that into the character.
And they'll flip out whenever they see somebody who's outside of those perceived limits. So they don't like Yasuke for the same reason they don't like me. And the wildest part is, they also don't want to be called racist.
They did this for brownie points.
I love it. We're on the same page. I always say progressive brownie points. That is literally why they did this. Ooh, we're so progressive. Ooh, we did an amazing thing. We're highlighting a black character. There are other races in the world. And this is not racist to say whatsoever.
I just wanted to point out how incredible this Brett Cooper video is because she very deliberately picked a black gamer who agrees with her to react to.
Instead of using a Japanese man in a game based in Japan, in this game, you want to demote a Japanese man and then use Yasuke.
Because he gives her plausible deniability from racism, and in return, this nigga got brownie points, fresh baked out the oven of Brett Cooper herself. This nigga got delicious, fresh baked brownie points. Zero self-awareness on the part of either party. I have no notes for improvement. This is perfection. The pattern of behavior is clear. Black characters, just like black people, get extra scrutiny because certain people are looking for something wrong as soon as they lay eyes on us, but especially when they see us somewhere they've decided we don't belong. There's a video of the Assassin's Creed Shadows trailer with George Floyd's face deep-faked onto Yasuke's. This thing has over 1 million views, just in case you were wondering how that whole Elon Musk's Twitter thing was going. We all know what this is about, but they need us to think it's about something else. They need to gaslight us into thinking that this is about the noble pursuit of history.
We're finally going to Japan. And I still gotta see you. What? Whoa! 2 protagonists, and one's a native Japanese woman.
I said person! And women aren't real people.
Hey, yeah! I'm sick and tired of all this DEI in my game. What does that even stand for?
Stands for too many niggas.
Let me explain something to you. Black people are resigned to racism. It is directed at us in so many ways for so much of our lives that we understand sometimes we just have to acknowledge it and move on. We want to enjoy Dragon Ball 2. And we do. We just identify with Piccolo because all the black characters on that show are f***ed up. So we did what we always do. We picked a character that is not explicitly white, and we bestow blackness upon them.
I'm finna tell you which Doug character I think can say the word. Obviously, we start with Doug. Look at him. No, he don't say it, and he better not. Cause it's his best friend, Skeeter Valentine. And he say it.
That's what we have to do to enjoy Dragon Ball and many other things. We are happy to do it. Racism probably is the end of the world, but we have yet to let it spoil our good time. So chill the f*** out about having your racism checked. It's not the end of the world. It's not the ultimate indictment like you think it is. Treat it like somebody telling you your fly is unzipped or your shoe is untied. Be embarrassed, fix it, move the f*** on. We cannot keep having endless conversations about what's really in your heart. We do not care. Shut up and listen. Mr. Popo is racist as fuck. How is that ever a question? Look at him. I still like Dragon Ball. I still understand why other people like Dragon Ball. I understand why it has appeal across cultural boundaries. I understand why it inspires people. It inspires me.
I didn't care anymore. I didn't care about being better than Kakarot. I didn't care about being a Super Saiyan. I didn't care if I lived. I didn't care about anything. And then it happened.
You think I don't get anything out of that? I think about that almost every day. I just don't need all the stuff I like to be perfect. I mean, this isn't just a white fan thing. There are a lot of black Dragon Ball fans who are fully willing to believe that Mr. Popo isn't racist and is based solely on a Hindu deity.
What we need to confirm is a reality. Mr. Popo is based on the Arabian mythology and Islamic theology. Let me get my black finger in there. Genies. Not racist.
How do you look at this and be like, yeah, he's supposed to be black? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand. I never knew what Mr. Popo was based off of, but I knew he wasn't supposed to be black. Even when I was a kid watching the show, I'm like, oh, okay, that don't look like a depiction of black folks.
Nobody wants Toriyama to have done something racist. I get it. It's just that I'm not here for your wants. Today, I'm here for a reality check, I guess. There's a horrible, racist Black Goblin thing in this franchise that everyone loves. Time to be honest with ourselves about what he is. There's a kid's cut of Dragon Ball Z that recolors Mr. Popo to make him more palatable for Western audiences, and that was a bigger issue in the fan community than the fact that he's essentially a cosmic slave. And that's not the only attempt to lessen the blow of Mr. Popo in the West. In Japan, Mr. Popo speaks in a broken, primitive dialect, so in the English dub, he speaks more eloquently. You know, it's okay to acknowledge that all of this is fucked up and racist, but that you still like the show anyway. Like, do you identify with Dragon Ball so much that if part of it is bad, it somehow means that you're bad? Another great artist who passed away in 2024 is the world-renowned minimalist painter and sculptor Frank Stella. In his early years, Stella eschewed the notion of art with a deeper meaning. He painted geometric patterns and said a painting is a flat surface with paint on it, nothing more. He didn't want his work interpreted as anything other than exactly what was in front of the viewer. And my favorite Frank Stella quote, I believe, ties this all back to Mr. Popo quite nicely. My painting is based on the fact that only what can be seen is there. It really is an object. All I want anyone to get out of my paintings, and all I ever want to get out of them, is the fact that you can see the whole idea without any confusion. What you see is what you see. What you see is what you see. Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill because by telling us what we see isn't what we see, they get some kind of feeling of superiority, like Tom Hanks in that one scene from the Da Vinci Code.
Interpret for me, please, this symbol. First thing that comes to mind.
Hatred, racism, Ku Klux Klan.
They are robes worn by priests.
If I mention Leonardo da Vinci 3 times in a video, I get a free pizza pie. But surely you get the picture by now. Mr. Popo is racist. You are not crazy for thinking so. You are informed and reasonable. Anyone saying otherwise is in denial. I genuinely want to say, rest in peace to Akira Toriyama. He meant a whole lot to a whole lot of people. No disrespect, just calling it like it is. Also, Rest in peace, Frank Stella. Also, the music you're hearing was altered by a guy named Oleg Berg. You might know him from this Dragon Ball Z meme. Oleg and his daughter would change the key of popular songs, and I have been following him on YouTube for years, but last time I visited his channel, I came across a message from his daughter announcing that he'd been killed in an attack from Russia on Ukraine. So that was my little tribute to Oleg Berg. Rest in peace. I want to shout out the channel ThirdWorldMiss for linking me to a very handy article that I used for this video. I want to shout out Jawn Louis for having me on his channel last month. I want to thank my patrons as always, because no patrons, no show. As always, without you, this show is not possible. So thank you for keeping this alive. You know what I could use? One of those black boy joys I keep hearing about. Have you heard about this? Apparently not only black boys, but adult black men are experiencing genuine childlike joy, like in their lives. Wild. How do I get in on this? I mean, in a word, money. So consider donating to my Patreon. I post exclusive content there, and I'm going to add more tiers and more stuff, more importantly. I can't get professional work without connections. I can't even find a good part-time job in my hometown without connections. I can't get this channel off the ground unless I make something that finally solves all 3 riddles of the mysterious algorithm. I can hardly breathe. And it's taken a toll on my mind. My mind is like the best thing about me. If I had black boy joy, all of this would be so much easier, but right now I cannot afford joy. It's a lot of processed food and not a whole lot of human contact. I still don't think it should be this hard to get paid to do something if you are as objectively good at it as I am. But meritocracy is a lie. I am proof. It is horrifyingly easy to do quality work and fall through the cracks if enough people aren't willing to take a chance on you. So I'm adding more tiers to the Patreon. Might as well try and get this money before Apple's predatory practices make the model unsustainable. I just don't want to cancel my gym membership. It's all I have. I'm going to start doing weekly videos just for Patreon where I just talk about whatever's going on. And I'm going to start doing polls for what I should cover next. Also, I know the Smoke Demon is Alliath and the Green Dude is Kami, but those jokes don't really land if you just say their names like everybody already knows who they are, and it's too wordy if you give the name and the description. But I get that it might have annoyed some of you hyper-fixated nerds out there, so this part of the video is for you. Sorry for trauma dumping. Also, I have 0 home life and no therapy, so here we are. But if my life ever gets good, I'll also let you know about that too, I promise. Okay, until next time, I've been NickolasNameolas. Be good.
I want you to bring me the cash. I said I want you to bring me the cash. I want you to bring me the cash. 1 time, 2 times for that ass. I want you to bring me the